Hi, I'm Jinx Viner, and you're listening to Psychology Versus. Today on the show, we're pitting facts against fatherhood. Will the effects of birth control challenge the role of fathers? In order to fully dive into the subject, we'll have to go back, way back, to approximately 10,000 BC. Imagine you're a cave woman, searching for her cave charming, and the clock is ticking. You'll have to make some risky choices to ensure you get the best mate possible, with only a couple reproductive years to do so. Eventually, you come across two suitors, Cave Dreamy and Cave Steamy. Cave Dreamy has lots of resources, alliances with others, and has expressed his desire to take care of children. However, he's not very physically fit or charming. Cave Steamy, on the other hand, is extremely athletic, very charismatic, and really, really good looking. But Cave Steamy has not expressed much interest in children, nor being a provider. Which one would you pick? In cave times, it was absolutely necessary to find a mate that would provide a good amount of resources, be invested in children, and have good genetics, so that the children who inherit those genetics would live healthy and happy lives. The choice in mates was not as simple. Having good genetics that promote physical survival and having a mate that would provide resources for survival were both extremely important factors to successfully reproduce. While we have the luxury today to engage in short-term relationships pretty often, women in these ancestral environments could not consider casual sex without the risk of a pregnancy that would not only cost them physically, but decrease the chance of survival for their child. Some evolutionary psychologists believe this dilemma explains why female infidelity might occur in some relationships. They suggest a dual mating hypothesis, the idea that women will choose two mates in order to ensure the highest reproductive success, one mate who has high genetic value and one who has high parental value. In our example, our cave woman would declare Cave Dreamy as her long-term mate in order to secure his resources and parental investment for her children. But then, she would selectively have sex with Cave Steamy so that she could pass on his healthy genes to her children. Brutal, right? But you may be asking yourself, what does all of this have to do with birth control? And even more so, what does this have to do with fatherhood? With the invention of hormonal contraceptives, women have been allowed more control over what kind of relationships they engage in and who they choose for a mate. Our cave woman could have given up on Cave Dreamy and Cave Steamy for a better, third option, given the chance to try out more relationships quickly enough to transcend the limits of her reproductive clock. Assuming this third option would surpass the standards for both parental and genetic value, the chance for dual mating to occur would decrease dramatically. And for fathers, this means they can be more certain that the offspring produced is biologically theirs. Let's imagine that our cave woman does engage in dual mating. How would that affect the way Cave Dreamy provides for his children? If Cave Dreamy has even the slightest notion that Cave Steamy has been getting it on with his cave wife this entire time, he might not be so quick to provide for children that may not be his. This idea is called paternity uncertainty. It is why in relationships men are more jealous of the idea of sexual infidelity than emotional infidelity. If Cave Dreamy is uncertain whether he is the biological father of his children, he will not invest as many resources and time into them. Multiple studies have explored this idea of paternity uncertainty and dual mating, and they have found that they co-evolve. This means that as dual mating decreases, paternity investment increases. It is possible that by giving women the control to choose mates that are both high in genetic value and parental value, birth control effectively decreases the need for dual mating. And because dual mating and paternal investment co-evolve, fathers will be more involved with their children because they are certain of their relatedness. But wait, there's more. Not only does birth control change the world socially, it also has huge power over our hormones. If you didn't know already, hormones control almost everything in our brains. And so by allowing birth control to infiltrate our hormones, we give it the power to influence how we interact and see the world. One of these very important hormones is called oxytocin, which is often referred to as the love hormone. Oxytocin release amplifies sex-dependent priorities in sexual attraction and mate choice over romantic bonds. In other words, when the love hormone is released, one may experience a shift in what they find attractive, particularly being influenced more by physical attraction. This important hormone, among others, increases during high fertility phase of the ovulatory cycle. And surprise, surprise, dual mating also increases during this phase. But when birth control comes into play, it suppresses the love hormone and thus one's tendency toward dual mating. So let's recap. When we think about our cave woman in 10,000 BC and her trials as a bachelorette, we understand the dilemma of dual mating. And when we fast forward to the present, in a world that is highly influenced by birth control, we experience an environment in which women have more control over their mate choice, decreasing the need for dual mating. To support this idea even further, by analyzing research on hormones, we found that it is possible that birth control could directly decrease dual mating by suppressing the hormones that influence it to occur. In a modern world where dual mating occurs less frequently due to the effects of birth control, paternity uncertainty is also less common and allows paternal investment to grow. From an evolutionary perspective, we can consider that birth control might actually foster father-child relationships. What other ways does birth control influence our world? To learn more about the effects of birth control on fatherhood, check out the show notes to see the citations for this episode. Lastly, thanks for tuning in. My name is Jinx Feiner, and we'll catch you next time on Psychology Versus.